Well, thanks.
How are
you? Doing great.
Welcome.
Thanks. I appreciate you joining us. And you heard me wandering around that as Daisy wagged her finger at me and said, "Hush up." So I'm going to hush up and let Daisy talk for a minute, and then we're not going to hear. We're not going to hear from Daisy. We're going to hear from Caleb.
Yes,
hey,
we're gonna
Caleb.
hear from Caleb.
So
Yep.
tell us what's going on.
Well, the thing is, Obama is insisting that the Assad government must have done this chemical attack. However, all the actual facts are pointing to the fact that it wasn't the Assad government that carried out the attack, that it was in fact the rebels. Carla Del Ponte, who's the United Nations human rights investigator who was there in June, she confirmed that the rebels have already used sarin nerve gas on 2 different occasions. There was a group of rebels that were going into Syria. They have their bases in Turkey, and they were going into Syria, and the Turkish government arrested them in May, and then arrested them and found this very gas, this very sarin nerve gas, was in the possession of these rebels. Now, this war in Syria, this whole war is being staged by the United States. Essentially, these rebels are being funded by at first they were being funded by the Turkish and Saudi governments, both of which are firmly aligned with the U.S. and both cooperating with them. Now they are receiving weapons and weapons and training and all kinds of support directly from the U.S. government. So this whole war is manufactured by the U.S. government because the Assad government has a history of standing up against Wall Street. The Wall Street banks and the corporations don't like the Bashar al-Assad government because it provides free health care, because it provides free education, because it aligns with the Palestinians against Israel, and for many years there's been an effort to destabilize the situation in Syria. This whole civil war is manufactured. There are very few Syrians even among the rebels. Most of these rebels are from places like Jordan, from places like Afghanistan, Iraq, and they've been shipped in. This is a proxy war between the United States and the Syrian government. And it's very unfortunate. Over 100,000 people have died already. And we need to make clear that not only does the U.S. absolutely not have the right to send missiles and attack and murder innocent Syrian people, but on top of that, the U.S. should cut off the funding. It should stop giving weapons to these rebels. These rebels have, there's video on the Internet. You can watch how they've kidnapped children. And they force these children to behead adults. I mean, these rebels do all kinds of horrific crimes against humanity, but you never hear about it. If you turn on CNN, you turn on Fox, you turn on MSNBC, all you hear about is how great the Syrian government, or how evil the Syrian government is. They never show both sides of this. And these Syrian rebels, who are being supported by our tax dollars, are committing crimes against humanity. And that's what's going on there in Syria.
Caleb?
Yeah.
Would you say that these rebel soldiers may then be mercenaries, people who are being paid to be soldiers, or do you think they actually support the overthrow of the Assad government?
Well, there has been a domestic opposition to the Assad government for a long time in Syria. I mean, Syria is a complicated country. You go to any country in the world, there's complicated politics. But these Syrian forces, the Free Syrian Army, or the Free Salafi Army, as some people call it, they are not domestic opposition. They are being shipped in, and we've seen this. It's a lot of them are actually people that were shipped to Libya first, and they were shipped to Libya to overthrow the Gaddafi government, and now they're being sent to Syria. And very few of them actually are Syrian themselves. Now, there are Syrian forces there, but there's even been rebel-on-rebel fighting. The imported rebels have been fighting the local domestic Syrian opposition to Assad. So the whole thing is just a mess, and it's so tragic. I mean, I'm here in New York. I've met with many Syrian people. They talk about Syria was kind of an exception in the Middle East because they've had peace for so long. They have Christians living there. They have Alawites living there. They have Muslims living there. And they've all gotten along, and they've all, kind of respected each other, and it's been a peaceful country for so long. And now it's a mess of civil war, and over 100,000 innocent people have been killed.
Now, Syria
this fighting has got to end, and the fighting isn't created by Syrians. It's created by Wall Street and by the U.S. government.
All right, well, we're going to take a short commercial break, and when we get back, we'll get into more of this with you if you can hang in there with us.
Certainly.
Very good. All right, we'll be back in a few seconds, you guys.
Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
Are you ready to show your pride? Come out and join us for the 5th Annual Upstate Pride March and Festival at Spartanburg's Barnett Park, Friday, September 14th, noon to 5 p.m. This year our theme is Moving Beyond Tolerance. Please arrive by 11:30 a.m. if you will be marching with us so we can get lined up. The march will begin promptly at noon, followed by the festival, which will end at 5 p.m. Stay tuned for a complete lineup of performers and speakers. If your group is interested in marching together, please contact Gail at march@upstatepridesc.org. Your tribe is gathering at the Music Camp, 3rd Annual Spartanburg Music and Arts Festival, a Greenfield Excursion Reunion 2013. Friday, September 6th at 7 p.m. until Saturday, September 7th at midnight. 16 regional bands featuring Greenfield Excursion, The Consumers, The Bent Strings, St. Maurice, and the Justin McCorkle Band. Great local food and local craft vendors will be there as well. Camping at no extra charge, and the event goes on rain or shine. Advance tickets are available at RJ Rockers in Spartanburg and the Handlebar in Greenville for a $25 donation. For more information, call 864-426-4950 or visit themusiccamp.net. That's 864-426-4950 or visit themusiccamp.net.
And we're back with Occupy the Microphone.
We are indeed. And we are joined by Caleb Maupin of the International Action Center, and we're talking about Syria. And I wanted to, we reported live on the show literally moments after it happened that the British Parliament had voted that the British government would not be authorized to get involved in a military assault on Syria. And I understand that the president or people in the administration have said that's fine and dandy, but we're not going to be constrained by what the British do. I understand the French government, in the name of socialist president François Hollande, has said the same thing. And I gather the Australians are still ready to jump right in this, and we're really confused about why the koala bears would put up with that. We love you, Aussies, but at any rate, get control of your government down there. Of course, we're not doing a very good job of doing that up here, are we? Caleb, is that the impression that you have? Who all is in the coalition of the willing in this endeavor?
Well, I mean, it certainly is frustrating because when Bush went into Iraq, we heard nothing but complaint from the Democrats about how, you can't just attack some country. You need to have a coalition and all of that. But this is a similar thing. The U.S. is essentially ignoring the UN Security Council, which is saying that this can't be done. Russia has made clear they will not allow such an attack to take place. So it's very frustrating. I mean, everyone, the media is all joining in a united chorus saying that Assad is responsible. There's no question about it, and then the U.S. just has to go in. It's very tragic, but as somebody who grew up in a Christian church, these Syrian rebels, they go into churches and they just kill everyone. They are, these rebels, they are Islamists, actually, in this case. The U.S. is always talking about fighting radical Islam, but the people that are being supported, these Syrian rebels, are radical Islamists, and they're fighting against Assad, which is the leader of a secular government. Everything is on its head.
AA has pointed out that in backing the Syrian the Syrian Free Army, or whatever the heck they're calling themselves, we're literally backing Al Qaeda. Isn't that right, AA?
Yeah, I think we can now say the U.S. backed Al Qaeda. Which brings another point I just want to point out, too. I saw today on TV that Syria is wanting to declare, the Syrian Assad government's want to declare an anti-chemical weapons zone. But also, if our findings find out that this was actually the rebels who used the chemical weapons, then is the U.S. going to conduct airstrikes on the rebels to retaliate against the use of chemical weapons?
Right. You would think that would make sense, right? Except the U.S. has been giving weapons and funding to the rebels, and it's been attacking the Assad government. I mean, the whole thing is just on its head. The image we're getting from the media is just totally the opposite of what the case is on the ground in Syria.
Now, President Obama has said that part of the reason we need to be involved in Syria and we need to address this is because Assad's use, if it is in fact true, Assad's use of chemical weapons thereby threatens the United States, because if Assad is overthrown, maybe these chemical weapons winds up in the hands of people who will use them against the United States interests, etc. And all kinds of sources that I have heard through the BBC, etc., have said that that's just a foolish assertion. The idea that the Syrian government could use any chemical weapons they may have against the United States is just out and out silly. I mean, the only way that could happen would be if we put our troops within striking distance of whatever chemical weapons they may have.
Well, absolutely. I mean, how would the Syrians get over here with these alleged chemical weapons? And I can tell you one country in the Middle East, not very far from Syria, that is using chemical weapons, has used them, and the whole world knows it, and that's Israel. They've been using white phosphorus. White phosphorus, a deadly chemical weapon that cuts up skin. They've been using that weapon for years.
And the United
doing
States
so without any apology, but you never hear anything about that. The Israelis are using white phosphorus all the time.
Well, and the U.S. has been accused of using white phosphorus or napalm as well. So now I can't lay any credence to that because I don't know it, but I've certainly heard those allegations.
Yeah. So, I mean, and what's the only country in the world that's ever used atomic bombs? That's the United States. Dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. Towards the end of the Korean War, the U.S. was threatening to drop 5 or 6 atomic bombs on China because they've got involved in it. Chemical weapons exist all over the world. Most of these chemical weapons were developed by the Pentagon. They weren't developed by people in the Middle East or in Asia or in Africa or somewhere else. They were developed here in the U.S. And
hey, it's a job.
The sad thing is,
it's a job. It's a job, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
All right. So we're about to run out of time here. What do we do?
Well, we need to go out into the streets and say we need money for jobs, we need money for schools, we need money for health care and education here in this country. The people of this country, there's so many homes being foreclosed, so many people unemployed. We need to spend the money on domestic, on people's needs here in the United States, not on a foreign war in Syria. We need to get out of Syria, stop funding these rebels, stop talking about shooting a missile. Every single one of these missiles they might send is going to cost over $1 million. $1 million to blow something up in another country when they're closing schools, closing hospitals, laying people off in this country. We need that money here with the way the economy is. We don't need it to go to a foreign war in Syria.
All right, Caleb, everything happens on the Internet these days. Where are you on the Internet?
We're at iacenter.org.
All right.
International Action Center.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I really appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
That was Caleb Maupin of the International Action Center. Now, I wanted to take a few moments while we had a moment.